Folks, welcome back. I want to take a look at the energies that the USA Collective is likely to face during June 2025 when it comes to politics and the Christo-fascist regime that's currently well underway to completely taking over. You do not need to be a United States citizen in order for this reading to apply to you. All you need to do is to live in the United States. And I hope that it is enlightening for people outside the United States to get them ready for whatever's coming their way, and also to serve as a warning. Don't be like us. Okay? I am using let me get stuff going. I'm using the Wildwood Tarot for this particular reading. And then afterward, I will be using the Uncertain Oracle by the Numinous Spirit Press and Cedar McLeod to finish off the reading. I'm going to shuffle first until Spirit asks me to stop. There are no reversals with this particular deck, with this particular reading, okay? Other raiders may use reversals. I won't do that this time. We have the Queen of Arrows. It's a swan. Right away, I'm getting Pam Bondi, the name Pam Bondi, and I would associate arrow energy, sword energy with lawyers, with the law. There's something about what she does, or possibly what the women in power do to further this regime's expansion of its own power. There's something about the executive branch that Pam Bondi is going. It's like she pulls a gate open and it releases the floodwater, or pulls a gate to a dam open and just floodwaters come flying out. I'm getting the image of like a dam getting released. If you ever want to look up a YouTube video and see how powerful that water flow is, it might give you a better picture of what this particular entity is going to likely do this month. Okay, we still have free will, them included, but I also feel like the wagon's going flying down the hill and there's nothing anybody can do to stop it except to just get it out of the way, because it's built up enough momentum that if someone tries to stop it, the wagon's just going to run them over. Like even a team of people are not going to be able to stop this wagon anymore. That was the bottom of the deck. The Queen of Arrows, the Swan, someone who uses their words, their intelligence to do some real damage. We have the 10 of Arrows here. They're teaching the next generation of young racists, conservatives, white supremacists, transphobic, homophobic people, racist, I've already said that, people, anti-disabled folks. They're teaching the next generation how to behave. Normally that would be the 10 of Swords. The Wildwood Tarot has a slightly different interpretation of the 10 of Swords. This is still the Betrayal card. Even if the Wildwood Tarot, that's not the meaning on the surface, given these particular circumstances, this is teaching a whole new generation how they can tear apart a democracy, how they can tear apart a republic, a representative republic. It's going to isolate us from allies. In a little bit, I want to look at a Hari chart, a Hari astrological chart for the United States. We have that kind of information that we can pull. Some discussion on what could happen in the future. But this is going to deeply isolate us and will isolate future generations because they were taught to behave a certain way. They were taught that this is the right way to behave. And it's going to force the United States collective into a place where they cannot interact with their former friends and allies anymore, because the allies want nothing to do with them. I'm doing a 3x3 spread. That was the top row, the first 3 cards of the top row. I'm not at all surprised to see this particular card. This is the Six of Stones. This is exploitation. There are beehives in the background behind this young girl and this elderly man. The beehives have been broken and the bees are long gone. The landscape is barren of all greenery. There's a tree in the background that looks burnt. There is a gardening tool right there to the left that is broken and useless, and there's a fire raging in the background. These people are in deep trouble, and if they don't get help soon, there is nothing for them. Now I'm getting the phrase Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security. These are things that are currently being bankrupted behind our backs as quickly as they possibly can get the money out. They're doing what they can. Doge was a way to get the foot in the door. Now the door has been forced open and even pulled off its hinges. There is no door anymore. This is free will. That's the phrase that's coming to mind. These people have the free will to do the damage, the ability. It's open season, basically, on people who voted for this, as well as people who did not vote for this. The elderly man at one point had the ability to turn things around, but didn't, and now the next generation suffers because the older generation did not teach the younger generation. That this is what the fall into dictatorship looks like. You can put whatever adjective you want to in front of the whole dictatorship word. This is still a dictatorship that we are falling into. And the next generation isn't going to be, they're not going to know any different, but they still have to reap the consequences. They still have to live in the environment that the previous generation created for them. This is tragedy piled on top of tragedy, dude. People are going to die because of open season. On the elderly, on the people who cannot defend themselves. I've been getting the Page of Stones quite a bit for the United States. This is small stone energy, small pentacle energy. When I think of a nation that is almost 250 years old, exactly like the United States, this is not the card that I would necessarily want to pull unless they were investing in something new. This is small thinking when it comes to the next generation. This is exploit what we can now. Short-term thinking, we'll worry about, we're not going to be around to see the problem surface, but I'm getting from Spirit that they will see the consequences of their actions. Arrows move fast. They don't want them to move fast. They don't want the damage to come back around on them, and yet this elderly man has survived to see to experience the damage that he has caused. He had the opportunity to stop it. He did not. This is fiercely predatory consequences coming our way to affect younger generations as well as people who had the ability to change things and did not, refused to change things. It suited them in the moment. I'm not surprised. I'm continuing to pull from the top. This is the Stag. This is old school, old world justice. These are karmic cycles. We created this isolative pattern for ourselves. Our friends, our allies have left us because it's karma. It's one of those duh moments. You treat people like shit, they will leave. If they have an ounce of respect for themselves, and our allies have more than an ounce of respect, they will leave. It's a natural consequence of our actions, and yet I'm getting that a lot of people are going to be stunned, surprised at the consequences that are headed their way when they shouldn't be. This is what they voted for. There is the risk that the 2026 elections could be manipulated in such a way that Republicans continue to have power because this is going to cause people to turn away from Republicans. But Republicans need to continue to keep their power, so they will do what they can to prevent free and fair elections from occurring. And I can tell you that in the state of Texas, with all the gerrymandering, this is the state I've lived in my whole life, so I'll speak for this state in particular. I know this is happening in other states. Gerrymandering has been a way for the Republican Party to keep their particular power. Redraw the district lines in ways that you divide up the opposition Democratic power as much as possible. But I will also say that the Democrats have had a huge hand in this. All the infighting, continuing to appeal to the elite billionaire interests above the working class, above the middle class interests, keeping power for themselves to the old guard and not handing it over to newer thinkers who can bring things in new and better directions. They've refused to do this. But also, that whole when they go low, we go high has also brought us here. Part of that has to do with Neptune and Pisces having such a powerful influence. Neptune and Pisces says we can all feel our way to the right conclusions. We can sense our way to the right conclusions. There's also that sense of we're all equal. We need to flow in the best ways possible for everybody. It's a very non-confrontational kind of transit that we've been in for a long time. Neptune just switched into Aries in March, and we've already seen the kind of results of we're ready to flame back and take back things that are ours, that we have willingly surrendered because we wanted to take the high road, when the opposition consistently has taken lower and lower and lower roads. This hasn't been an effective strategy. Neptune in Aries and now Saturn Aries, which that transit just got started a couple of days ago as of this filming. 4 days ago. You're going to start to see more fight from Democrats, but I don't believe that it's enough anymore. I believe that this is out of control now. This is indicating that we've set ourselves up for failure, and now we have no choice but to sit with the consequences. And it's going to make people who are accustomed to stable, comfortable, sheltered, superficial, shallow lifestyles, it's going to shake them out of their comfort zones, absolutely. And there's the real risk that with this Neptune Aries, this Pluto and Aquarius, and with this upcoming Uranus and Gemini transit that we'll have in July, we have the potential to see shallow, superficial people turn deeply angry and violent because they feel like nothing's right. And so what we do with that is we create violence. And unfortunately, this regime that's currently in place seems to be encouraging that behavior. 47 has already said that he wants to send terrorists to, I believe it was Supreme Court justices' doorsteps in order to scare them into place. I'll edit in post-production if that in fact was not the case, okay? But if it is true, I'll put a link down in the description below. The moon on water. We have only just started to see the consequences. Spirit has been telling us that now for months, to be quite honest. If you go back and look at the videos that I've done for the collective over the past several months, since July last year, we have been warned about catastrophic failure on the part of the United States. None of the infrastructure being there to save people who need it the most. This is why we need to get together in groups and shelter the people who are most vulnerable in our society. We need to be there for each other Because there are people in power who are going to use their emotional and mental intelligence to do tremendous damage that we have only started to see the beginning of. There is more coming down. There are more generations that have not been born yet that will be forced to bear the consequence. There's an egg underneath this river. I don't know that it started to crack, but this egg cannot stay an egg forever. It is not a dud. There is something inside it that must hatch, that must come out. More exploitation on top of exploitation, more destruction. This is the wealth of a nation being scattered to the four winds. And no recourse, no recovery is available. There is just moving forward. This is catastrophic, what we have. People are going to get creative when it comes to fighting back, to defending what it is that they think is theirs to defend. There are people who are going to use violence, and they're possibly going to work with evil, dark powers, unconsciously or consciously, in order to accomplish their violent means. There are people who are going to want to show people just exactly what it feels like to have lost their jobs, to have lost their livelihoods, their farms, lost their children, lost their rights. People are going to get creative in very destructive ways. Normally this would be a really cool card. These could be really cool cards in some ways. But given the context, this is old world shit boiling up from the bottom saying you can't live this way anymore. Pluto is not here to fuck around. Pluto in Aquarius is not here to give love pats and ass pats at this time. It is here to rend the United States from sea to shining sea. Rend, tear apart. Empowerment, justice has been divinely empowered to isolate the damage that the United States is doing and will continue to do for the rest of this year. I filmed a video towards the beginning of this particular year, 2025, about what we are to expect in the first and the second half of the year. We're about to cross over into the second half of the year. I will put up a title card or an info card to encourage you to take a look at that particular video now that we have reached this second half of the year. This is when things get serious. 5 of bows. There's a lot of damage. I'm looking at this particular cudgel, at this engraved figure in the mountaintop. Is ready to swing, just like the stag is ready to swing its axe. Damage. All kinds of damage. This is the end of an era. This is the painful end of an era. I will continue to take from the top until Spirit asks me to stop. Those are 9 cards. No more from the bottom. There are going to be people who celebrate the downfall of the United States, including people inside the United States. The indigenous population that lived in this country before white people colonized it and destroyed the indigenous population, destroyed their food sources, took their land away from them, took places away that were for them to live. There's no reason that these groups should not celebrate. Unfortunately, I also feel like there's a real risk that indigenous and folks of color are going to be disproportionately affected by this. In a previous video, I discussed how white flight has already become an issue and is only going to become worse. And there are still going to be people who celebrate how much pain the United States is going through, because the United States has bullied its way through much of history. The United States, in fact, has a stellium in its birth chart, and the stellium sits in Cancer. If Cancer is ill-placed, has been subverted, then it will do a tremendous amount of damage. One of the weapons of war that's associated with Cancer is the tank, because it moves slowly, like the crab, like the Cancerian crab, but still does a lot of damage. And you kind of associate that with the United States. Kind of moves slowly sometimes, but nobody wants to put their fingers in the crab's pinchers. Hard to penetrate, has bullied its way through history. We have here the devil. This is the guardian. You're meant to push past these bones. They're imposing, but you're meant to push past them and keep walking down the path that the guardian is blocking. You're meant to walk under it. You're meant to even push it over. There are people who are going to be celebrating the fall of the devil. That is the United States. That is the United States' behavior. I've seen before that the United States is accustomed to using the stick far more than the carrot, and that other countries that are dictatorships, such as the Chinese Communist Party, have learned how to balance carrot and stick, something the United States has not learned to manage. This is going to be also a trial for the United States that I don't believe that it's going to pass. This is having shot themselves, the United States collective has shot itself in the foot badly enough that it's not going to be able to even hobble forward anymore. It's just going to have to sit with the consequences, because definitely the allies and friends that were once ours they don't want anything to do with us, it looks like. I saw that there was an envoy from the United States that went into Canada to try to reestablish a relationship. I'm getting that will fail. We have generosity next. This is the people on top of the regime who are going to be quite generous to their rich and wealthy friends. That's it. Again, it should be a positive card, but there is the devil. This was always about a rich person's playground. This was always about exploiting those who had little to nothing, or maybe a little bit more than a little bit. This was never about making things better for everyone. This nation was founded on taking care of white, cisgender, heterosexual men, able-bodied as well. This was always a nation founded on the backs of slaves, and on enslaved people is what I should say, and on the deaths of the indigenous population that was here long before any white person was. This is tragedy that the universe is using to punish the United States for where it has been and for where it has gone, for where it went since the time it was founded up until this particular point. This is punishment, to watch the wealth of the nation be given to rich people who, for them, it's just numbers on a screen. It doesn't connect to this buys me shelter, buys me food, buys me transportation, or whatever it is. These people just see numbers on a screen. They just see power. And you're going to see more of that. You're going to see more wealth funneled right up to the top. They learned from the COVID pandemic that this is the way that you quickly transfer a shitload of wealth right up to the top where they get to sit on it. These people are not investing in us, the everyday collective, beneath the billionaire elite class. They're sitting on this, and they're not releasing their funds, and they're not refeeding the United States, if that makes any sense. Or it doesn't happen often enough that makes a difference. Spirit is indicating that is all for the Wildwood Tarot. I'm going to shuffle a bit, if I can pull up the cards. I'm going to shuffle with the Uncertain Oracle for a bit by Cedar McLeod, who owns and runs Numinous Spirit Press. This is my second deck from them. Love these particular cards. This card wanted to come out. Canyon. Though I walk through the shadow of the valley of death, I will not fear because you walk with me. I'm a pagan, but sometimes we can use some things from other faiths in order to help illustrate the point. June marks the possible beginning of the walk through the shadow of the valley of death for the United States collective. Be aware of this. Those consequences have started this particular month that I'm filming in, May. You're starting to feel this, but we're going to feel this more in June. Something has the potential to explode, is what I'm getting. Explode, and the debris lands on those who cannot afford to get hit by that debris. Going to continue to take from the top. Forgiveness. This is a hard one. This would be a hard one. Forgiving the people at the top. They know not what they do. I'm getting another Christian verse, another Christian citation. Forgiving the people at the top for their blind, self-serving natures, superficial, shallow, a mile wide, an inch deep kind of thinking, because they have karmic debts coming into them. Oh, I'm getting like hundreds, like centuries. I'm getting centuries of karmic debt that they will be forced to be reborn and live out their karmic debts incrementally for hundreds of years. At a certain point, even if an individual went through genuinely horrific things personally at the hands of those who are running this regime, there would be a point, I would suspect, where that individual would say, enough's enough, but the universe has not had enough. The universe is not done with excising, not with extracting, I should say, the karmic debts from these people, because they're well aware of what they're doing. They're consciously pulling away from those who can least afford to be pulled from, and they don't care. And the universe will not bless this. The universe will not bless this behavior. In fact, it has been triply empowered to exact the exact kind of revenge and karmic debt that the universe sees fit. Things must be balanced out. And when people with free will choose to deliberately throw the balance off, the scales must be rebalanced, and it will be painful for these people over centuries. And if you knew that, how would you think of them? It's up to you, okay? You've got guidance. Last and not least, I've been saying this once again for months. I should say Spirit has been telling us this for months. This is the time for you to get in very deep contact with your higher self through your sacred intuition and have a cosmic conversation about what it is that you can do to render justice in the places where it's needed most. But also to help give you a sense of gravity in the midst of rapidly changing, rapidly burning circumstances. You have the universe, you have your guides, you have your ancestors and your deities who would love to give you all the guidance that you could possibly handle on this. For some of you, this is a journey that you are just starting, and these are circumstances that are going to greatly test your spiritual aspect. Allow these circumstances to test you and ask the universe, your ancestors, your guides, to give you the strength to go through these circumstances. You don't always need to see the way clearly, With the Hermit card, ostensibly, that lantern only illuminates a few feet, or even in some cases a few inches in front of the Hermit's face. And these are going to be one of those such circumstances. The Osho Zen Tarot's iteration of the Hermit is the Aloneness card. And I'll put a picture up on the screen of what that looks like. But in that particular picture, the entity's inner light is what is guiding him. He's not holding a lamp. He's just holding a staff to help steady his way. This is where you need to allow your inner light to glow enough that you know where to go. The world that we live in does not teach us to rely on ourselves, does not teach us to rely on our inner guidance, our higher selves to lead us. It does not teach that. Because when you do, you are just about bulletproof, in a way. You cannot be swayed. When you listen exclusively to your higher self, to your guides, to your ancestors, your deities, you are untouchable. And that's not something that mainstream culture, mainstream society likes. Just be aware of this, okay? There is guidance out there specifically for you through these uncertain times, dude. And this is guidance that's going to be often exclusive just to you. And it may not be that same way for somebody else. Pluto in Aquarius is much more about the individual than it ever was about the collective that you would associate with Pluto in Capricorn, okay? We're still in the shadow of Pluto in Capricorn. In fact, Pluto in Aquarius, as of this particular writing, is currently retrograding back into the shadow, further into the shadow of Pluto in Capricorn. So a lot of these uprisings, these circumstances, it looks like this regime is getting more power, grabbing as much power as possible. I would expect to see that with like the last vestiges of Pluto and Capricorn, okay? This is to be expected even if it is painful. No matter what, hold on to your inner light. Trust it above even the closest people to you in your life. And they should be listening to their inner lights, their higher selves too. And that's going to be hard work. We have our work cut out for us this particular month. Spiritual path, your own spiritual path exclusively to you, and a meditation routine, if you haven't already started one, is going to be immensely helpful. I already do a daily meditation routine. Just 20 minutes is what has really been helpful to me in helping chill out and pay closer attention to my environment, because even in the midst of all this shit going on, there are still beautiful things that you can listen to, for instance, in nature. And meditatively observing your environment helps with your situational awareness, as well as enjoying the moment. And that's what's going to bring us and you true joy. Enjoying the moment. That's all for this particular reading. I hope that you're okay this particular month. I hope that you get to be safe this particular month. Take care, okay? Thanks for watching.